Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the moments+peace podcast. My name is Mike, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Nereida, and we are here to talk to you today about evolution. Why is it that Christians need to teach their kids about evolution and how to refute it? And today we have a special guest, Dr. Carl Werner, who's going to be telling us what are the most important reasons why Christian parents need to teach their kids how to refute evolution. So stay tuned. So, Dr. Werner, welcome so much to the moments+peace podcast.
Oh, it's great to be with real parents, with, real heroes who are teaching kids. I always admire, Debbie and I don't have kids, and I always admire these families like yourselves who, it's so hard, so busy, and so complicated, and yet you guys just kind of fly through it and go with the punches, so it's really great to be with a couple of heroes in my mind.
Oh, well, thank you. No, we're just a couple crazy people that decided to have a bunch of kids. So we really appreciate it. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of punches, thrown our way, especially with this culture the way it is. It seems harder and harder to discern what do we do to raise these kids to love the Lord. It's a challenge, and Christian parents today are even more challenged than ever before. But yeah, thank you for those kind words. We wanted to turn the floor over to you to teach us and explain to us and to our audience how we can really show our kids how to navigate through the world of Darwinistic evolution that's propagating, especially in the school system and even in some churches. So can you initially just tell us a bit about who you are and some of your street cred, and then go from there?
My street cred is I was trained as a physician and also a biologist. I had my undergraduate degree in biology at the University of Missouri. And I'm double board certified in both family and emergency medicine. But while I was in medical school at age 19, my friend challenged me about my belief in evolution. You see, I was raised in a church that didn't teach the inerrancy of the Bible. And to be honest with you, I just started drifting away from my parents at age 7th grade, 6th grade, somewhere around there. And it got worse in high school. I was kind of a rebel. And by the time I got to medical school, I got into this accelerated medical school at age 18. By the time I got into medical school and I was taught about evolution, I became a rudderless big ship. I was just adrift in the ocean. And Mike, I was just miserable. I had all my freedoms like everybody wants. And yet I was so sad, so miserable until a friend challenged me about my beliefs in evolution. And his questions to me pointed out to me that I really didn't know what I was talking about, evolution. And really there was major problems that I had never been told about. I did a 180, but I had so many problems. I had to then answer all my questions. And so I've been at it for, 40 years now, where I have been researching evolution. Initially, that started out with just me for 18 years, just reading books, just like you or your wife, Nereida, would do, just about evolution. But I was so frustrated with the answers. I just was unsatisfied. Then for the last, I think, 30 years, my wife and I formed the television production company, and we traveled around the world, I think 298,000 miles, 6 continents, interviewing 104 scientists about evolution. And now I'm ready to tell the world evolution doesn't work. It's completely dangerous for your children. And I'm ready to stand on top of a roof and, yell. Jesus said, no one lights a lamp to put it under a lampstand, but they put it under a bushel, but they put it on a lampstand so it shines for everyone in the house. And I want to shine this light really big to all of your family, friends, listeners, and share this important information.
So what was it that began it to be a passion project for you? I mean, along the way, do you still practice medicine, or did you deviated from that over the years, I would imagine?
Well, yeah. Being a physician was like a God plan. Also, I had no children, so that was part of the God plan too. We weren't able to have children. I was a physician, and being an emergency room physician, I could take off a week or two every month or two. And my wife was this big help. She was an encouragement. She said, let's go do this film company. And so really, you could say I was working 2/3 time for the last 30 years, but really it was closer to half time. And then the last, I don't know, 10 years, it was like quarter time. I had enough money, which I know you guys don't have because you have all those kids. but I had enough money. I had all the time. I had all the intellect. Not that I'm a smart person, but all this training in medicine. And I was like, and I had a wife that was willing to support. So once we went to the television production company and became incorporated and all this, it really turned into a grind. Now, I want to clarify, I've never made a nickel on any of this, and I never will because it's so expensive to do this. But yeah, the happiest moment of my life was when COVID came, because I had to tell my wife, Debbie, I know you said I can't retire before you because your brother-in-law did that to your sister and she regretted it. And so, I need to retire though, because COVID is here and I have type 1 diabetes, and either I get to retire or I get to die. So which would you rather have, a live husband? That was the happiest moment for me.
Wow, you laid it on thick.
I do. I always lay it on thick. And that was the happiest moment for me, because then, whatever year that was, 2020 or whatever, then I was free of all my responsibilities, and we were going gangbusters. And we had just finished our second Africa tour, where we're going through the museums and scientists. And so we had all of the footage done. I didn't need to travel anymore. And then we cranked out this mini series on human evolution. So I was like the happiest guy in the world. It's like, all I want to do is work on this, So.
There seems to be a narrative amongst conservative Christians where there's almost a fear of teaching about evolution for the fact that, well, what if my kids learn about that and then they get indoctrinated by it? So I'm just going to teach creationism. And it seems almost like a Chicken Little Sky is Falling technique. But what would you say, if you could sum it up like into a nugget? What is the top reason why Christian parents should teach their kids how to refute evolution?
Well, if you don't, and I don't want to sound like, the sky is falling or, whatever, the world's coming to an end. But if you don't teach your kids and get them up to speed on this topic, they're going to be eaten for lunch by the grade school teachers, high school teachers, and college. And if you just taught them, and I don't want to offend your audience, but if you just taught your kids, God made the world, and that's the truth, and you don't need to think about it, they're going to get eaten for lunch because their professors are going to have all these clever proofs that aren't really real, but they will seem so clever and so convincing that they will then doubt everything you've taught them about even faith, because it's like, well, they had no way to refute the professors. And by the way, that's what happened to me when I became rudderless. I had no knowledge. I had no way to refute it. And it's like, why am I following religion? And I think your children, the audience's children, will do the same thing. If you don't get them up to speed on this, I think you're going to lose them. I think that's the biggest danger. And then the social media, I wouldn't give them a phone either. I wouldn't give them a computer or phone, without supervision. I would just be doing the book. I'm serious. It just seems so dangerous. But
yeah,
the people have fear of teaching evolution because they don't think that there's good disproofs of it, but it's quite the contrary. The amount of evidence, and just in my 4-book series on evolution for the kids, it's a 4-semester class, the amount of evidence that the kids can spew back to their professors is astounding. And I'd like to just tell you a story. When the kids who get my first book in the mail for their class for Evolution, the Grand Experiment, which is our 4-part curriculum, when they get it in the mail, a lot of times they will scurry up to their bedroom and hide and read the entire book in the first evening. Like they'll stay up all night. Then I've heard that story multiple times.
Binge watch it. Yeah.
Binge
Yep.
reading.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, that's definitely.
Yeah, because there's so many pictures in it and there's so much proof, and they finally get to stand up for their faith. And then I heard this story,
Yeah.
another story where these these parents were with their eighth grade son, and they'd gone to a major league baseball game, sitting in the free seats or something like that. And their son brought his friend, and they you know how the parents can eavesdrop on their kids, and especially the mothers, they hear everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they just heard their son explaining to his friend how, yeah, there's all these bats, there's no bad evolution, they have all these dinosaurs. And then he said, besides that, the evolution scientists used to believe that mice came from dirty underwear. And he just went on and on and on, and like, he's the apologist and he's only in eighth grade. So if you want your kids to be excited about life,
Amen.
this is it. It's time now to jump back into evolution, because now we have all the disproofs.
Yeah. So we've got that book right here you're just talking about.
Yeah,
So this is volume one. We have the other 4 volumes. But I was flipping through this, and what I love about this is that it doesn't seem highly technical. It has the big, bright pictures, simple language, written in layman's terms, right down for their level. And that's what I really love about it, is that they get, because what good is a highly technical answer if it doesn't stick? It's like they remember, seeing that the Heckle embryos was disproven 100 years ago, it was a hoax, and so many other things in there. It's just proof after proof after proof after proof. It just knocks down all the arguments, so that it should be just standard reading. But so we want to, again, join you and just screaming it from the rooftops, like, God created everything. And when you can stand up and defend your faith. And so I think that's the answer you gave, is really, they'll eat you for breakfast if you're not ready to defend your faith, which is what apologetics is all about, learning how to defend your faith.
And it seems like dramatic, but it's so true, because I have friends who their daughter walked away from the faith like the first semester of college, and this was the reason, because she didn't have answers.
Mm-hmm.
And so this curriculum right here is like life-changing. And I heard we use master books because they are apologetically driven to teach people how to defend their faith, and their curriculum, has that all woven in. And your curriculum is sold on the website there, the first 2 volumes of the books. And that's what my kids are working through right now. And they absolutely love it. And it is captivating because you catch the visual learner with all the pretty pictures. And then you got the auditory learner because they get to read or, listen to the DVDs and see it. And then it's fun to like add stuff onto it. And they get to talking, and they're connecting with people because they have all this information that's coming out. Like every time after they're done with this book, they're like, did you know this fact? And did you know that they thought that hyenas and whales could have been related? And, and they're going on and on. And they, or the whole thing with Lucy and the whole false ape thing. And the fact that there's atheists in here that you interview, that they themselves are divided among themselves. Like the idea of some don't believe that dinosaurs ever did have feathers. And then other ones are saying that, no, it possibly could have happened, and how they manipulate these bones. And it's just so fascinating because anyone in the family can watch the DVDs and understand it. And then the books are just so captivating. And I do think like 8th grade up, if they just did one a semester, it would give them all the answers that they need to see that humans and creatures, animals, are completely different, and why we're uniquely made in God's image. And beyond that, just the scientific proof with fossils, which they love to throw at us. Some atheists think that we're just completely ignorant because we are creationists. And it's so awesome to have so many answers in such a clear way. And it's been one of our favorite. And I do agree with the president of Master Books, Randy Pratt, who says that, this was a must do before they graduated. And it was one of his daughter's favorites. So I was like, well, if his daughter's kind of artsy and if she really liked it, then it's got to work for my artsy kids and my logical ones. And it's been a hit across the board with different types of learners. And it's a great pace. It's not overwhelming, and it's easy to learn. And so I just think that apologetically, it teaches you how to stand on your faith, because this is the biggest battle. This is why the church is broken down, why the church has become compromised, and why kids are walking away. They think we don't have answers, and we live in like Raleigh, so the whole NC State, Duke, medical, biology is very huge here, and like being intellectual is very huge. And to be able to be a Christian who believes the Bible from the very first verse and give the answers and stand is huge. And I just think that it's a necessity before someone could graduate like your homeschool, if you could get your hands on these books, which are also very affordable and accessible, because you even have them available on PDF, right?
Yes, we do.
For people who might need the PDF
so
form.
the books cost about $35 new, and you can buy them used, of course. And then we have them on PDF. So that would mean that they would read them on an iPad or something like that, or their phone. And they're only $14. And, if you can't afford to buy the DVDs, you can rent the DVDs from our website where you just watch it, for a week or two. And so you can rent we made it so everyone can afford it, because I know a lot of these homeschool families only have one income person, so that means like they are scraping the barrel,
Yeah.
And so, what are we doing this for? We're doing this for you and your kids. We're not doing this for Carl Werner, although this was my own selfish ambition to figure out evolution, whether it was true or not. But really, when I do figure it out, it's really for your family. And so we've been trying to be very careful about keeping the prices down.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I love that it is so available, because if your kid is college bound, I think it's so important that they know how to stand, because there's a Chapel Hill professor here who first day loves taking those freshmen and just automatically ripping them apart with the Bible, and he's kind of like known for that. And so I think there's other professors out there like that, and we just have to teach our kids to stand, that they're standing on the truth. And so could you maybe give examples to people of like how this curriculum does that across the board, all 4 volumes?
Yeah. So the biggest proof of evolution is that the fossils show one animal evolving into another animal, like a mouse type mammal evolving into a bat, or like a dog like animal evolving into a whale. And we have always been taught at the museums that the proofs are in and all the evidence is in, and they got all these fossils. But in fact, Nereida, the fossil record absolutely does not support evolution. It's the opposite. The fossil record shows the opposite, except for 3 examples. And those 3 examples have enormous problems. And I was involved in disproving the whale from a dog type of animal. And also I was involved in the dinosaur to bird evolution. And then we just completed the human evolution. But besides those 3 that were supposed to be, the proofs, every other fossil type animal just shows up in the fossil record without evidence that they evolved from another animal. And then when you look at the best 3 proofs, whales, birds, and from dinosaurs and man, there's enormous amount of frauds in those fields. For example, we just did let me just show it to you. This is called the Human Evolution. This is volume 3, is Untold Stories of Human Evolution. I don't know if you can read that. But this book shows that there was 150 frauds carried out by the top human evolution scientists. 150 frauds. That's all brand new information this year. And they've also, like this book here that I just showed you, also showed the Ape-Men that were covered in that book were just barnyard animals that were interpreted to be Ape-Men. For example, one of them was a horse. That it was a horse bone that the scientists who are supposed to be so smart interpreted a horse toe bone as an Ape-Man collarbone. Another one was a donkey skull, that they had a fragment of a donkey skull. He said, oh, it's an Ape-Man, but it's not. Another one was a raccoon. Another one was a cat. Another one was a dog. So these top scientists are, I don't know, is it unchristian for me to say a bunch of idiots? But these top scientists are making so many mistakes. And once you understand the details of just those three best proofs, you realize the whole thing has collapsed. In fact, this year I've started to announce everywhere I'm going that the theory of naturalism, that is that everything came about naturally, collapsed in 2024. And I have good proof for that. But I won't go into it today, but
That's awesome.
So is there any recourse for these fraudulent documentations for evolution?
none. No,
Yeah. There's no science police out there.
there's no science police.
Yeah.
It just kind of shows there's like an agenda.
Yes. And
There's like a corporate agenda to keep people not answerable to God.
right. And when they do find out that there's frauds, when their colleagues, evolution colleagues, find out that their colleagues who are promoting evolution had committed a fraud, they generally will not call him out on it until he dies. So there's this big delay in uncovering frauds until the scientist is out of the way, because they're afraid there'll be repercussions if they call out that scientist on fraud. Then maybe they'll lose their job because they're, quote, anti-evolution, but they're supposed to be telling the truth, So yeah, there's just seems to be no real recourse,
Yeah. That's
So we are in, like she'd mentioned, in the Raleigh, North Carolina area where Duke Medicine is big here, UNC Chapel Hill. So why should refuting evolution matter as a Christian who's going to go into college and get into medicine? Why should that be a critical issue? As somebody who did, like you studied medicine and worked in it for a number of years, what is it about refuting evolution that should matter so much when someone's working in the medical field?
Well,
or does it matter?
It really, evolution doesn't have any effect on medicine or engineering or anything like that. It's just this made up story, and but it's the individual. It's the individual physician, medical student, or nursing student. It's that individual who will fall out because they weren't able to refute evolution. You could go through medical school believing in creation, believing in evolution. It really doesn't affect hardly anything, because you treat sore throats the same way, you treat a heart attack the same way,
right?
It's
here really, now science.
Yeah, it's hard science, So but for that individual, they will get swallowed up alive if they're not up to speed, and have done. I'll just say boldly, if they haven't done these 4 semesters of our 4 books, they're going to be very vulnerable.
So go ahead.
Okay. So I was just going to say, so would you say that as a physician, the idea of will the fittest survive, that mindset or worldview wouldn't have an effect on how you would treat somebody? Or, I don't care if people die from a vaccine, it's, for the greater good. Could that take a worldview, an evolutionary worldview, affect that person's individual way they see a person?
Well, Nereida, you're right. I'm actually going to back off what I just said, because I knew I knew colleagues in medical school, residency, and even in my career who looked on sick people as a liability and as an unfit person, and let evolution take its course and bump them off if you believe in euthanasia. And yes, so yeah, it does affect it. Now that I think about it, yes, you're right, Nereida. If you believe in evolution, you have no sanctity of life. You're protecting. In fact, you want to get rid of the bad lives, And so, yeah, it's very dark.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We see it as the evolution creation debate, as you've probably seen pictures of Ken Ham illustrating this. It's a foundational issue for the church of whether God's word versus man's word. And it is that the issues of abortion and euthanasia and, the medical community, all those are the tertiary issues. The primary issue is whether or not God said we came into existence the way we did, or did we just evolve by random chance? I actually got into a bit of a comment war with somebody on YouTube, which is starting to happen for us. We've got just over 200 subscribers now. So now there's people chiming in, and a person told me that, it doesn't matter. The most likely logical case is that we came here from chance processes and random millions of years, basically. And I said, the fact that you're using an intricately designed brain with an intricately designed eye to make the statement and the thought that with logic, which is transcendent and proves that God exists, to try to refute that is the height of irony, because you're trying to use something designed to say that there was no design. The body, and then it came back with, well, the body has flaws and people have diabetes. And I said, well, the comparison to a functioning pancreas versus a flawed pancreas means that we know there's a breakdown, and it's because of sin. And, you know, back and forth we went in the comments, and I'm not one to go into the comments and start a feud, but this person, I don't know, they set out the bait, and it hooked me into wanting to defend biblical creation. And the final word, I did get the final word, and they disappeared. I don't know. Maybe they'll come back after they see this video, but it just seems like it's an ongoing issue, and it's foundational. Like, we support I'm actually wearing the shirt today, Love Life Ministry in Raleigh, that supports pro-life. And we've gone and prayed at the abortion clinics. And we know that the foundation of that, going back to Margaret Sanger, is evolution, and that you believe that life just processed randomly. Boop, here we are. How'd that happen? And there's no meaning in the universe. But that's a baby that's being killed. And so there's a obvious war in culture over these issues. And this seems to be the foundational element.
I was just going to say, like, what words of wisdom would you have for the college student, someone just going into the workforce, and then particularly medical students having had that background?
Well, you just need to read up and get up to speed and think critically. And the problem that I had was that I took my professors at their word, and that was a big mistake. I thought, and I took scientists at their word. That was another big mistake. I thought, well, that's a high esteemed profession. He wouldn't be lying to me. He's telling me the truth. And now in my more senior phase of my life, I'm so critical. I'm like doubting Thomas. I don't believe anybody unless it really makes sense and I can actually see the evidence, because, they will just make things up. And if they know it's wrong, they'll still go ahead and tell you that. It's unnerving how bold they are,
Yeah.
To lie. Yeah. And so in that culture, it seems like we all the more have to stand up for the truth. And your curriculum has definitely equipped our family. Like, we are eternally grateful for just all the body of work you put into this, so that it's easily digestible, so that our kids can feel equipped. And I mean, to be honest, like, I can sleep better at night knowing that my kids are going to go out and defend biblical creationism, albeit, they're butting heads and they're doing it as gracefully as they can be. But, I'm just really grateful and thankful for your ministry to be able to put this together.
So what was your biggest blessing or growth process personally in this long, many-year project?
Well, it's strange. I think I'm the dullest brained person on the planet. I'm so non-observant. I have to just, I'm serious. Stuff has to just hit me in the face. And this last year, it almost brings tears to my eyes. This last year, it became apparent that the evolution scientists became apparent to me after my interviews with the 40 scientists in human evolution that they had been committing a series of frauds for all the big Ape-Men. You've heard of Lucy was a fraud. Nebraska man wasn't a mistake. That was a fraud. Neanderthal man wasn't just a mistake. That was a fraud. Once I realized that the human evolution was based on fraud, then this year it came clear to me that all of naturalism had come to an end, because you and I know all these reasons why the Big Bang doesn't work, and why you couldn't start life from chemicals, and why the fossil record doesn't work. We know all that, but we still had this problem with the human evolution. And once that was, I got slapped in the face with it. Oh, hey, by the way, you interviewed all these scientists. There was 150 frauds discussed. Then to see that this year, if I'm honest with anybody, if I'm honest with you, I have to say out loud, all of naturalism collapsed in 2024. And that's a big statement. I know it would take a little while to really put the meat on each little fact about the Big Bang and the origin of life and the fossil record and all this, but it's true. The whole thing is collapsed. And it's just like, wow, Lord, I just didn't think that you were going to allow me to get to the end of the rope, to the end of the trail. I thought I would just be working on it and I would never be able to fully say, no, take me to Raleigh, North Carolina. I want to speak in front of the professors, because the whole thing has collapsed. Anybody believes in it, they don't understand the facts. So that was so satisfying. And to be honest with you, that's just been going on for the last couple of months. I did all this work, but now I'm just processing as I talk about it and realizing, wow, it's over. Evolution is over. The Big Bang is over. All these ideas,
Right.
it's all over. So talk about a fulfilling, moment. That really is special to me.
I guess our job now is just to get the word out and
Yeah.
get equipped with all the knowledge about the falsehood of evolution, so-called theory, and just get the word out and continue to just defend the faith. And again, thank you for your contribution. It's definitely equipped us.
So, do you feel that the old Earth view of creation would essentially still be trying to fit evolution into a biblical worldview, and it ultimately can't go hand in hand with all the research that you've done?
Yeah, the old Earth view just doesn't work, and that would take a little time to explain it to you. But the presumptions that they start with are based on incorrect information. And for example, like the old earthers would say the universe is 13 billion years old, but that's based on a false science called the Big Bang. That billions of years comes from the Big Bang. So that doesn't work. And then they would say the animal life is 500 million years old on Earth, but that's based on false information too. On the geological column, there's saltwater animals in every layer, and there's modern animals in every rock layer. By the way, saltwater modern animals in every rock layer. I wonder what that could be. What could that mean? So they think that those layers are adding up for 600 million years when really the basic facts, I'm saying the basic facts, don't fit that. And then lastly, the old earthers would say each layer, by the way, I'm not being mean to them, I'm just correcting them, but they would say each layer was laid down over 10 million years or so, 5 million, 10 million years for each layer you'd see at the Grand Canyon. The problem with that, Nereida, is that there are trees all over the world that go upright, that go through 3 layers. And how could a tree stay standing upright for 30 million years waiting for the sediment to surround it? See, it would fall over after 100 years. So you can see in the fossil record, if you're given the correct information, that these rock layers were laid down rapidly. It was a saltwater event. It was a tsunami event. And so I would just appeal to the people who believe in an old Earth. I know why you're doing it, because you've been giving this set of facts to try to manipulate with your belief in God. And that's laudable. That's good. But you don't need to do it anymore. Now the switch just got flipped even further. No, the universe isn't billions of years old because the Big Bang didn't occur. No, those rock layers aren't millions of years old because of these trees going through the layers and because it's a saltwater event, a single saltwater event. And so you don't need to go there anymore. You can just go back to the original creation story, followed by this original story of a flood, worldwide flood, and it all fits perfect, So eventually people are going to get caught up to this. But right now, there's just ignorance of these facts. And I would love to share with this information with anybody. Invite me to your university and I'll share this information. But it's very clear.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's awesome. I thank you that you touched on that, because oftentimes I have dear friends who are old Earth or maybe not fully convinced that they can take God's word from the beginning at Genesis as true, because they don't have answers, but they're starting with that presupposition of evolution has to have some type of influence. And that's why this course is so important, because it shows you that evolution is just impossible. You're believing lies. And, we have the Holy Spirit, who's the Spirit of truth. And that's what we're really supposed to be following. And the word of God is true, And so as a fun fact, though, I think people should know you actually don't use the word God in your curriculum.
No, I don't.
So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Which is very funny, Well, my sister, when I interviewed my sister, just sat down and I said, I'm thinking about starting up this television production company, and we're going to film this series for PBS that didn't pan out. And but at that time, I didn't know it was going to pan out. And I said to her, "What approach should I take? Like the heavy hammer, or?" And before I even finished the sentence, my sister, who's very smart, she said, "No, Carly. All you can do is raise the question." So the material just goes through and says, does these facts that I just showed you, these fossils and the numbers of fossils, does this go along with the idea of evolution or not? See, and I also wanted the book to be read by everybody, even someone who doesn't believe in God. I want them to read it and not be turned off by, Jesus is Lord and, believe in the big book and all that sort of thing. I could have gone that way, and a lot of people have, but I just decided to follow my sister's advice and just raise the question. And, as your kids read through that first book, you don't need to give them the full answer. They figure it out in about 15 minutes. You don't have to answer the question. You just raise the questions, and the data is so strong for creation that you don't even have to use the word God. And so, by the way, the book series can be taught in a public school.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that my kids found interesting too, because they didn't even realize that God wasn't in there, but it all pointed to God because the evidence are just there. And they thought that those were actually critical questions that you ask at the end of every chapter, because you start off with that presumption that they have of like, this is what they say, or this is the fact. And then you go through and they actually read and see and study the fossils. And then in the back, they have to then say, all right, now, what do you think now? Was it like it was before? And, has your thoughts changed? And it's very neat that they have to think critically for that. So it's just, you're not just like spoon feeding them it. They have to come to conclusions themselves, which is college level life like that. Are they going to just take everything a professor says and what their starting point is, or are they going to like filter it and have discernment and slow down and think critically? So I think that apologetics helps you think critically. And so I think it's neat that it's not like just totally blatant, but that doesn't mean that it's antichrist, obviously, but it just points you to a creator because it's so evident. You can't deny a creator in the origins of all of these things and what we still see today with fossils and everything. So I do think it's a neat story that you actually snuck in to these museums and got people to just talk to you because you didn't blatantly say I'm creationist. So they were willing to. But the moment you say I'm a creationist, they're like, no, we can't talk to you. So how did you like maneuver that to get so many scientists that were, secular but experts in their field to be comfortable to talk with you?
Yeah, because we interviewed successfully 104 scientists. We were in 18 universities, 104 museums we had entree to. And my name is Carl Werner, and I'm filming a television series on evolution for national television on the topic of evolution. And we'd like to interview you about your expertise on bat evolution. That's it. That's, and they always presume, they always presume that, that since I'm filming a series on television,
You're on the same team.
Yeah. And of course, I never told them otherwise, but I didn't lie.
Right. Yeah.
And, so, and it was a God inspired thing, and the evolution scientists who I interviewed were the ones that told me about the frauds. The evolution scientists told me that, for example, the dinosaur to bird one, he said the National Geographic scientist was told by him that the fossil was a fraud. It was made up of a dinosaur attached to a bird body. He told him, and then the National Geographic scientist published it anyway. And it was the evolution scientist who told me that their colleagues had committed fraud in the field of human evolution. They just told me story of evolution fraud. And I don't think they would have told me about a single fraud if I had told them I'm doing a show on creationism.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why I wanted our people anyone watching this to realize that, you went to the people that specialize in this field, that don't have a biblical worldview, believe in evolution, and they themselves are not even confident or happy about the fact that there's division among them. Like, some will feel like embarrassed, or the fact that they have to hide this, or like, yeah, we do lie, we do disagree, but you'll never hear it nationally, but they also will not give credit to a creator about it, because they just don't want to be accountable. But it's very interesting that you got that information, and you're just pointing whoever gets their hands on this to the same evidence that there has to be a creator. And we know that that creator is, our Lord Jesus Christ, or, God the Father. It's all right in there in the scriptures from, the very first verse. And so I just thought that would be a neat thing to let people know that, God's not used, but the designer is in there, and the kids have to think critically. And yes, you did get information and talked with secular scientists, so what they believe, that they're in their field and they're experts, and then they're like, oh, by the way, yeah, we lied about that. Could you imagine any other field just lying? Which actually, you probably could go down a whole list of people who are just lying all the time in their field. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that we're just taught to embrace this as truth, and really it's just lies. And we as Christians cannot be people that lie or affirm lies.
Yep. We're told by Paul that we have to tear down every stronghold that stands against God. And I feel like what you've done here is a pre-evangelism ministry of just taking that blinder out of the way, or destroying that foundation of that stronghold that stands in the way of God, so that now someone can't use this as an excuse. I mean, people are without excuse either way. In the day of judgment, they're going to be without excuse. But at least this one can be the way to lead somebody to the saving knowledge of the Lord. And so I guess just to wrap up, my final question would be, what did you learn going through this process? I mean, you're kind of standing against culture in a way. What has the Lord done in your life and showed you over the last, many years you've done this? And how did you grow in your faith? Just kind of your spiritual journey as it's been lately because of this.
Well, this is probably not the answer you're looking for, but I'm going to be truthful. What I learned is, if I, Carl Werner, do not persevere, I'm going to miss some big stories. And see, this is like the biggest endurance, perseverance story of a human being. I guess I'm overstating it, but how many times did I remember at the 10-year mark, we had no PBS, we had no publisher, we had nobody interested. This is the first book, the book that everybody loves. And we had nothing after 10 years of dumping all this money and doing all these interviews, going around the world. We had nothing. And the question is, do you persevere or not? And I gave Debbie a out. I said, because I don't want to hurt her feelings and just drag her around the world for another 10 years. I said, Debbie, do you think we should quit? We have this. Can you imagine us quitting before the Green Book was out? I said, Debbie, do you think we should quit? Because we have no publisher, we have no PBS, we have nobody, Discovery Channel didn't want it. We have nothing. Do you think we should quit? I was hoping that she would say no, but I wanted to give her an out, And she said, let me try to get this face right. Carl Werner. She's tapping me in the chest. Carl Werner, God did not call you to stop in the middle of this project. You were going to finish this thing, and you're going to persevere, and you're going to go, and I needed that. That's what I wanted her to say, but I wasn't going to force her, because that's going to be mean in a marriage, And so, and how many times, how many times in the last 30 years was I at that point where everything just stops? It's crazy. Even this last year, everything just stopped. I said, Debbie, we have none of this. 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 Do you think we should publish the Human Evolution book and release the series? And she said, Carl, no, she wanted me to, but of course she wanted me to persevere. And here's the point for all the young people and all the husbands and wives out there. You will never find something great if you give up in the middle of it. You have to, if you really think it's right, you have to persevere when the whole world says no. You have to still keep going. Perseverance. And I think my mom and dad probably taught me that, like it was probably piano lessons, Mom, I wanted piano lessons, but I've now only had 3 lessons and now I want to quit. No, you are going to persevere. You signed up, you're going to go to the end. And Mom, I want to quit baseball, because I've done three games and they won't let me play because I'm so bad. No, you signed up, you're going to finish it. And she didn't care about the piano or the baseball. She wanted me to learn the quality of perseverance. And, the big
Amen.
the big things that happened in your life, like your marriage, are going to only happen under perseverance. When you think all hope is lost, you can't talk to your spouse. No, you are going to persevere, and you will end up on the bright side after this. And the same with some young kid has an idea, like they think they're going to become a singer and they really think they have the talent. Well, it's not going to just come to you. You got to persevere. Now, if you sound like a crow when you sing, it might not be a good idea to persevere. But I had no reason why I had the talents to finish this whole project up. I just believed, based on these 3 facts that I learned from my friend in college, that evolution had to be wrong. And at times it was lonely to persevere. I was like, all your friends look at you cross-eyed, like, what are you, some kind of nut? You're spending all this time, all this money. What do you got to show for it? Is it making money? No. And are people lining up to play your video series all over the world? Well, they did eventually, but no, it's perseverance and faith. But I guess those are the same. But please persevere. If you're a young person listening, if you think you got something, you got to keep going, because we need you to finish it up. Otherwise, it just gets lost and nobody ever gets to the right answer.
That's a good word. I mean, that's a great word for passing the baton to the next generation, is just keep at it and don't give up. And we'll see things happen that the Lord will do in culture if we just stand fast, stand firm. The gates of hell will not prevail. So we just keep standing firm and the Lord will do the work. One brick at a time, that wall will come down, So that's awesome. That's such a good word and good encouragement. Great place to end things. Where can everybody find out about you and what you do? What website, social media? What do you got going on?
The simplest way to learn about our curriculum, our video series, our books, is to go to our website, because our website acts as a clearinghouse on how to find things. The website is called thegrandexperiment.com, and there's no spaces. It's thegrandexperiment, no spaces.com. And what the website will do is, like, okay, you want the book? It'll send you to Amazon. You want the PDF? It'll send you to my site to get the PDF. You want to watch the video on demand? It'll send you to the streaming video site. And it's kind of hard to find the resources or know what you're supposed to have. Oh, you want to do the first semester? Here's the first semester curriculum. You can either order it here, but if you don't, here's the books you need, the book and the video you need. So come to the website, and you could spend hours on the website because there's a lot of shows on there, content, video content. There's a lot of press releases as we were finding, frauds that were coming out. And so you could spend a lot of time on the website, but if you want information, that's where you come to.
Great. We'll definitely link that in our description of the video and in our podcast notes for this episode, so people can find it, people can get it, people can get equipped, they can equip their families, and they can be ready to take on this culture that's increasingly hostile to us and help tear down that stronghold of evolution. So we are eternally grateful for you. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today. We are very thankful for you.
God bless the Kendricks. And I hope you still have hair, both of you, in 10 years from now. And I want to say one last thing, because I perceive you have more than one kid, as I want to thank you for having a family. And if it's a large family, I want to thank you for having a large family, because we're going to get it swallowed up because people aren't having babies, And I know, yes, you could have had a nicer car.
True.
And you could have had, maybe some vacations to some fancy place. But all you have now is this, I call it poor fun, where you're just laughing having all this fun with your family. You have no material goods, but you have all this. You're the richest people on earth. And I always say the bigger the family, the richer you are, because I always marvel at these big families. They're so
Amen.
fun
Yeah.
to be with, So I want to thank you for having your family and for doing this ministry and for letting me have an opportunity to reach your followers. That's a really big opportunity for me.
Yeah, thanks so much. So just to turn to everyone watching, thanks so much for watching today, and make sure you check out Dr. Carl Werner's curriculum. It will give you the answers you need to defend your faith. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.